Hey guys, this is another episode of the Believe in Padres Prospects podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, San Diego's #1 sports podcast network. It is episode 45. Got Dustin on the line, not Dodger Dustin. Well, we're not talking about the Dodgers. You're just going to be regular Dustin with no Dodger talk. Does that make sense?
That seems fair.
Yeah. I got to make sure I'm hitting record because you'd be surprised. I listen to a decent amount of podcasts, and I'd say like every third one, the guys were like, yeah, I forgot to turn my mic on for this segment, so be prepared for that. Or like the first half of this interview.
I definitely noticed that, or like them saying, or them having to use, they forgot to press record, so they have to use, the phone audio.
And it's never, or the computer's speaker, it is never as good. You can always tell. I've always wondered why the other guy on the line who is using a good mic and can hear the host, why doesn't he say like, hey, your mic's not as good today. You want to check that before we finish the whole thing? Because you can hear my mic. It doesn't sound like a shitty computer mic, does it?
No, but I guess
it's not the best mic in the world, but it's not your standard computer mic. You can tell the difference.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised no one brings it up.
There probably is a fair amount of times where somebody does catch it. Somebody probably does it all the time.
Not enough for me, anyway. I would want you to tell me if the mic sounded terrible.
I will.
Okay.
And we just went through that.
So Dustin is filling in this week. Last week I teased Dustin with this second version of our movie draft that we're going to do. And we ran out of time because I didn't want to have another hour and a half podcast with Dustin. So we got pushed this week. I figured we can give you a chance for a little baseball talk since you're actually a huge baseball guy. And even though you're a Dodger person, we can get your thoughts on a couple of things around baseball because we've had Wade on and we have guests lined up in the future, but it's a good opportunity for Dustin to get in here. Are you excited more for the movie draft or to getting into the MLB Union versus owners hot take bonanza that's taken over the internet?
I mean, it'll be more talking about the MLB issue will be more cathartic because it's just, there's a lot to say. But then I'm definitely more excited for the movie thing. The MLB thing is just mind-numbing.
So we'll talk about what the movie thing is in a second. So you're more excited about the movie draft. What are you more upset about? The chance of not having a baseball season or MLB Network flaunting in your face 64 straight hours of Derek Jeter propaganda covering his 13 greatest games?
Definitely not the latter because I can choose to watch it.
Is anyone outside of the Bronx going to watch that?
No, I'd watch if there's like a final episode of how he's done with the Marlins so far. I'd watch that.
How he quote unquote bought the team.
The face of buying the team, and then
and he pays himself $5 million, and he'll make back all the money he invested in just a few short years. Talk about isn't that like the definition of a racket?
I mean, the Marlins. Do you want to go racket and Marlins? There's been some stuff.
True. They're one of the best examples of a sports team that fits the racket mold.
Yeah, they're truly like predatory for the city.
So on today's show, we're going to do a quick recap of. Nope, that's the wrong today's show. Let me find out what happened. Why did I leave this in? I was not supposed to be left in here. That's why I left it in. Hold on a second. All right. So on today's show, we're doing the movie draft. If you weren't listening last week and or you just skipped it, the movie draft is we're drafting movies which are comedies that could be reworked theoretically into the best horror/thriller movies. So there's some creative leeway here, but the idea was to not change the story at all, or maybe just tiny little tweaks. You can't change too much of the story and change, but the goal is to change the viewer's perception through so maybe you're viewing the movie through a different main character, or you're changing the music, a combination of both, removing some filler jokes, Family Guy style. So maybe Dustin, you can explain it better. You're the film guy here. What's the goal of this draft?
I mean, I feel like the goal is to show how many comedies just like would be terrifying from another character's perspective. I mean, it's just kind of first thing. It's like a fun exercise just in kind of storytelling because you can just see how one story can be so different depending on the tone you choose and the character you choose to tell it through and all that type of thing. That's that type of stuff. But some of them, it just kind of gives you more of a sense of just like how not okay these like movies would be as a real life story.
Speaking of not okay, to jump in here real quick, I'm watching. I say I rewatch movies a lot more than the average person. Like I will just rewatch stuff that I like. So today I'm watching Top Gun, and it has to be one of the most. Do you know what the scene I'm going to be talking about here? The most awkward, uncomfortable, inappropriate scene of it doesn't hold up well at all is Tom Cruise following that woman into the bathroom at the bar. So he hits on her, he gets rejected, she walks away, goes to the bathroom, and he follows her in there to talk about why she is not hooking up with him. It's cringeworthy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I remember it. There's so many terrible moments. Oh my God. Like with just like the creepy fucking thing these guys do.
Well, that's number one. That's like if we were doing a draft of creepy things guys do in movies that you couldn't do today, I think that'd be a candidate for number one. Following a woman into a bathroom.
Wedding Crashers could happen.
No, this was worse than anything that happened in Wedding Crashers.
Now there'd be a debate of whether Wedding Crashers is rape.
Who? The woman raping him?
No, because like you're lying about who you are to like it's all false prejudice. I promise you there would be some type of debate about that.
For sure. You're right, but I don't know if it can top Gun here. But anyway, we're gonna spend less time on this. So we're gonna do a draft. It's gonna be snake. So we're gonna do the ping pong ball thing again that we did before and see who goes first. But we're gonna do a snake draft because there's only 2 picks, and we made it 2 picks, 2 rounds because it went way too long last time. I like talking movies with you, and we start to talk about something. Like I had to get my Vincent Hanna takes from Heat off my chest because I just saw Heat, and we ended up going really long. So we're gonna go shorter this week. Wade nominated Step Brothers. Now I'm assuming he did that just because he loves Step Brothers and he wasn't listening to the rules or the idea of what we're trying to do with this draft. But do you think Step Brothers would even be worthy of consideration? And would you consider even picking it?
It's tough because I think the goal is for the movie not to be aware of what we're talking about. Whereas like, I feel like Step Brothers is kind of aware that this movie is miserable for like the other characters.
True. I dismissed, I don't think it is applicable to this idea. It doesn't seem to fit what we're doing. I love the movie, but I don't think you could rework that into it.
Don't want anything where like a character is expressing that like they're not experiencing a comedy, they're experiencing a horror movie. You want like something that like seems to have like a happy-go-lucky tone, or not happy-go-lucky, but just like comedic tone all the way through. But you realize how, that from another character's point of view, there's no way it would be that case.
So we're going to do that, which I'm looking forward to. And then we're going to do the obligatory MLB nonsense bullshit. So a spicy take or two on that. I have a spicy-ish take, maybe not. We'll see you'll judge it. The MLB season, how it might go down. I'm not exaggerating here. They look like they're really literally shooting themselves in the foot. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the owners or one of the players in this boardroom were negotiating and meanwhile shooting themselves in the own foot or cutting off their nose to spite their face. It could be literally happening because I don't see how any logical person could let this baseball season not happen if there's a chance that it could happen. It just seems insane to me that these other leagues are getting going. Bundesliga, Premier League, Japan, Taiwan, like everyone can find a way to do it except us. Even NHL, even sports in our own country are starting to happen. And it doesn't make any sense that baseball's the one
happening now. We're figuring it out, but baseball. Sports that aren't supposed to be happening now are figuring it out, but baseball, which is at least lined up with when it was supposed to be happening anyways, can't figure it out.
So the obligatory bullshit baseball talk, we have to do that. And we're not going to spend too much time on it because it's everywhere on Twitter and your local news. So if you're 65 years old and you watch the local news, you know what I'm talking about. It is everywhere, and you all know the facts, but I'm just gonna hear what Dustin has to say about it and then give my spicy take so Dustin can shit on it. Before that, though, our sponsor, Dustin, are you familiar with our sponsor, betonline.ag?
I think I am. I think I'm kind of in the market because Bovado is out now for me, so I have to look at that.
We'll talk about that off air. Yeah. BetOnline. While you're waiting this out at home, you can still have some fun betting with our partner, betonline.ag. There's no NBA, painfully aware. No NHL, although coming back soon. No MLB. That one's looking a little more serious. But don't worry, BetOnline still has hundreds of games, events, and sports to wager on. NASCAR, I'm not sure if that's is that just the virtual NASCAR? Is that what they're doing?
No, I think they did a real NASCAR thing.
Oh, I'm not a NASCAR guy. Madden, NBA 2K simulations. This is the world we're betting on. NBA 2K simulations. UFC, online casino with poker and blackjack. And then don't forget about Korean baseball, which is they're airing it on ESPN. If I can watch it, I'm going to probably bet on it. And I've lost. Be sure to check out The Final Dance with roundtable interviews from ex-Chicago Bulls Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, Craig Hodges, and Ron Harper as they discuss the Michael Jordan doc in full. And it really is the Michael Jordan doc. Have we stopped calling it the 98 Bulls doc or the Bulls? It's the Jordan doc. Everything's about Jordan. Even though Scottie Pippen, I think, is really overreacting. We'll get into that for just a second, I guess. But what is Scottie mad about? I think Scottie was portrayed fine. I'd be happy if I was Scottie.
I found their relationship weird for a long time because it's like you want to think that they're not enemies at all, like Kobe and Shaq. They're supposed to be friends and really appreciative of each other, but they just do shit sometimes that makes you feel like they're not. They don't seem to really be day-to-day part of each other's life at all.
That seems so strange.
Pippen was really quick to say LeBron's better, which was very odd.
Don't worry, we have Paul Pierce to balance that out.
Yeah, and then I kind of thought I think Pippen's issue was every storyline that was only his was pretty shitty, but when he also did those things.
I know, that's what I was saying to Wade. The episode that he refused to go into the game. We all I didn't see it, but everyone who was around at that time saw it, and it's not news. That was already common knowledge.
At the end of the day, it's he still comes off he guts out game 6 at the very, he comes off well. It's just I do think that it's weird. Nobody else seems to think this is as weird as I do, but Jordan refers to him as Pippen, as if he's a coach, but it's his peer. I thought even that's weird. Their relationship does weird me out, and I think there's a lot of tension there. But it's just funny to me that so many people took part in it, knowing he had final cut and expected anything else, especially Horace Grant, who knew that MJ thinks he's the one that did it all.
And honestly, he probably was too.
I think the best thing I've heard, the most consistent, logical thing I've heard, it's not that he isn't the one, it's that there just can't be only one. There clearly were more people.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Half the clubhouse probably was.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's betonline.ag. Use the promo code MyPod100. BetOnline, your online wagering solution. I'm recording. I didn't watch the first episode of Lance yet, but Lance is already rubbing me the wrong way just because the ads for it, this 30 for 30 on Lance Armstrong. Episode 1 was on Sunday or last Sunday, I think. And episode 2 is going to be this Sunday. They're really long episodes. They're 2 hours, but Lance already bugging me in his little teaser commercials for it because I don't want to see Lance smiling and smirking about anything in this teaser because he was such a piece of shit his whole career. Not just lying about what he did. I don't think we cared that he was doing, blood doping because that's what the sport does. It's professional wrestling. Yeah, no one's gonna be upset about that. It's just his vileness towards the people who were accusing him. He was pretty unforgivable, all the stuff he did, and so I don't want to see his little. He had one little smirk in the commercial, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to hate you. I'll watch the first episode, but I'm ready to hate you now.
It's funny. So I totally agree. I'm not gonna watch it. I just don't like him.
Does anyone like him now?
No, I don't like him, and I don't think hearing the extent of his wrongdoing / the extent to which maybe he's kind of sympathetic just because not the whole story. I just don't care. But what's funny is that the ratings were pretty bad, and I read an article that
people hate him. I'm not surprised.
That I really agreed with, which is ESPN promoted it they thought docs were the new thing, but what's pretty clear is what people like so much about the Jordan thing is it was a purely positive, nostalgic doc, and all these docs that are coming out on the next run, which most documentaries are inherently negative. People aren't that clamoring for that, because it's not. You don't if anything, it's reinforcing that something that used to be nostalgic is tainted.
Well, the OJ doc did really well. The ESPN.
That's different because OJ actually that transcended into if the OJ doc, he's just like one of the most fascinating people.
It's more a murder mystery, which is what today's culture is super interested in.
So much new stuff. Like I thought he just like was a pretty normal guy who then snapped, and like the extent to which he had been a fucking maniac for his whole life was like amazing. I had no idea he lived such an insane life.
I think is this crazy? Do people hate Lance Armstrong more than OJ Simpson?
Kind of. I think they do. It's like the Ryan Braun thing too. Is like Ryan Braun. Yeah,
Ryan Braun.
It's that he went after, and he really he used anti-Semitism to try to go after the guy, and he's always what goes worse. Is like if you try to ruin somebody else's when you know you're in somebody else's life when you're in the wrong. That's when you really get in bad area.
And you've got to be mad because he ruined playing the Jew card, which is a valuable card to hold in your back pocket when you really need it.
If anything, he did the opposite. He kind of
he ruined it for you. You can't use that anymore.
No, I don't think he had that big an effect.
Okay, let's get back to baseball here. So just for a minute.
Yeah.
I mentioned this earlier. The good news: Japan is starting June 19th with no fans. So that's another baseball thing for me to bet on. I think I know slightly more about Korean baseball, and that's not much, but I'm more familiar with it because as you know, I used to live in Korea, and I'd like betting on that more. But adding Japan is just another thing to bet on, which is fun. Minor league baseball teams are starting to cut their players, which is something I saw today. Like the Oakland A's said that, well, first of all, they missed rent, and then they said they're not going to pay their players, which isn't a surprise. If you can't pay your rent, I guess you're not paying your employees. But not releasing them also. So I'm really confused by what that means. And your brother's a lawyer and famous hot taker. Have you talked to him at all about what the hell the A's are doing?
We've kind of just traded just outrage over what they're doing. Have you seen the money on how little money they're saving with the minors and also how much they limited the amateur draft?
Well, yeah, the draft, once you get past the first few rounds, like the guys aren't signing for that much money.
What's pretty clear, and this is where it gets into a lot of other issues, is like we were headed for lockout anyways. This was going to be a bad labor negotiation. All of a sudden it's happening right now, and they have no interest in like changing their mind just because of what's going on. They're like, well, we're going to use this to try to reform the league in the image we want. Which
is funny because everything that's on the table right now is pretty much it's a 1-year deal. It's common knowledge among the players and the owners. We're doing this for 1 year, but I guess they don't want to set a precedent.
Yeah, the precedent the players don't want to set is that they're accepting the owners' interpretation of how much money they're making or losing because because the owners aren't opening their books to it, and they wouldn't have fucking teams if they were all losing money.
Although it seems like there was not a report. What do you call it? Let me pull this thing up real quick. This is I guess it is a report. The AP was talking. Got a copy of an email from Scott Boras that said the owner's problem right now is a result of the money they borrowed when they purchased their franchises, renovated their stadiums, or developed land around their ballpark. So now they're claiming that they're cash poor.
But that's exactly right. That's kind of like, this is like the old trick of colleges too, is like you just spend and put yourself in debt so you can claim to be actually losing money. And you want that for these situations where people try to make you play fair.
So every year you can just make wild profits, and then the 1 year that's kind of the outlier where something weird happens, like a pandemic, you're able to claim poor and then save your cash. It's pretty genius.
The other thing teams always do is like they try to convince the public that like they're just a normal business, either makes money or lose money. Like, and if you remember, anytime you remember that, like actually the main thing is that there's still the value of the team itself.
It just goes up every single year. Yeah.
So exactly. And so even when they're quote unquote losing money, often the value of the actual assets going up. It's just so infuriating. I don't blame the players for putting their foot down. I think it was stupid to say they won't take a cut $1 publicly, but I know why they did it because like negotiating, but that just makes them look just as bad. Well, nothing could make them look just as bad because the MLB owners look terrible right now.
Well, the players are in the no-win situation. They're going to look bad. If there's no season, it's going to look bad on the players, and I don't think it's going to look that bad.
I got to tell you, I think that there's some damage done already. That even if they come back, like that, people just will remember that like they fought over money when we're headed for a global depression. Like there's nothing worse in normal times than billionaires and millionaires fighting over money. That's like what people say every lockout. And now they're doing it during a global depression. It's just like the lack of both. I think the players probably understand it more than the owners, but the lack I mean, the owners are supposed to be smart enough to look out for or businessmen like to look out for like the long term health of the league, and like that they don't understand that like the or they do understand, but I'm sure they do understand, but like the damage they're flirting with doing to the long term health of the league is just infuriating.
I wish that all pro sports teams were not privately owned, and that they would be like the city takes ownership of each team. You can guarantee that the teams aren't going to hold the city hostage and try to move. You hold the ownership accountable, so you don't have owners like Daniel Snyder or someone who just everyone hates and you can't get rid of them. There's no way.
Yeah.
Or Dean Spanos. And the city government dictates who will be the general manager, the CEO, or the. And then if you don't like, it's like an election. It's a public office. You elect the guy to the GM position, and he gets a term of 4 years. And if you don't like him, you vote him out. I would love a system like that and make it illegal for teams to be privately owned. I don't think that's ever going to happen, though.
It will never happen because they'll just slow growth so much because cities and states can't spend as much, especially it's just such a bad optics at all times to be spending on sports. I mean, colleges go through this issue all the time. But I do think there should be something where like even the other owners can vote somebody out if they've been bad enough. I'm surprised. It kind of is terrifying. We almost got stuck with McCourt. Luckily, he wasn't friends with Selig, and Wilpon was, so the Mets fans are still going through this. But like, how you can just get saddled with a bad owner who just ruins the team for like a large portion of your life. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I can't think of any other kind of business where that happens. So what I want to talk about also was what Max Scherzer said, because this has been the thing that's been all over the news. Is Scherzer kind of dropping the hammer on everyone's hopes and dreams for the baseball season. He came out and said, I'm not even, why are they even saying this in public? This is why I don't like this either.
I really don't, but
he says we have previously negotiated a pay cut in the version of prorated salaries, and there's no justification to accept a second pay cut based on the current information the union has received. This is like the PR war, I guess, although the pay scaling, yeah, the top 1% of baseball players who are making, $20 to $30 million take the biggest cuts. But then the guys at the bottom that are making, league minimum, which is, I think, $560,000 or, anywhere from $1 to $5 million are getting about half pay. And so relatively, they're not getting hit that hard. It's the very top couple percent.
Not only the very top, though, because like if you look at it, even the people in the middle, it's like there's a pretty immediate scale to losing a lot of money. Like I'm looking at the numbers right now. Somebody who makes 15 million would make 4.5. So like that's
or I see it at 4.05.
But like, yeah, I mean, it's obviously the owners that whole offer was meant to make the people who make the star players look bad. But first thing, the players are kind of right here, which is like they signed a deal regarding exactly this in March 26th, and like this isn't like the situation changed. We were in quarantine. And
are you ready for my spice take on this?
Yeah, it's time.
Well, I just think it's a good idea. I don't know if there could be a huge flaw that I'm not seeing, so feel free to rein me in at any time.
Okay.
So the MLB owners will not open the books to show the players their revenue for the season. That's like kind of the big problem here. They want the players to take a massive pay cut on contracts that they already agreed to. But in light of everything happening this year and just the year, they want to reduce salaries commensurate with team revenue. They don't want to, and there's no bonuses happening. Maybe there are.
Yeah, but they don't want the accountability of what team revenue is.
Yeah. Players think the pay cuts are too drastic, and they need proof that the ball clubs are in financial distress, which they're not going to get. None of this is new. So what if the players agreed to the terms that are on the table right now? They make guaranteed money. They take the health risk, but they make guaranteed money, which is in the millions. I know it's way less than they agreed to, but still, they provide for their family this year in an extreme circumstance. And I think the health risk for these guys, I think the science backs up that it's fairly minimal. Shortened season, lower salaries, everything's guaranteed. The owners are taking the financial risk. They hope they can make their money this year, but I think they're probably going to end up losing. If the owners make money somehow, by the grace of God, then they have an independent accountant verify the profit, and they donate all the profit to COVID-19 relief. boom, Max Scherzer's checkmated. And tell me why this won't work and why I'm crazy.
Because the owners will never have an independent accountant try to go.
An arbiter. You get an arbiter that, I mean, they use arbiters all the time in baseball.
These people have so many assets that it's impossible to tell. So, like, what do you do with somebody?
No, not personal assets. Not personal assets.
But it goes hand in hand sometimes, because what do you do with a lot of these guys that own real estate around the stadium? So they're losing money on the team because they're building up the area, but they're making money. They're making a ton of value in the real estate that they're building up. So, like, how does that figure in?
I get what you're saying, but you got to restrict it to team revenue somehow. Only team revenue.
Yeah, I mean, the owners will never agree. I mean, if there's one thing I've kind of learned, just like following sports closely and politics, dropping in here and there, is like rich people do not open up their books.
No, they're not. They're not going to. They're going to have an arbiter or arbitrator. Is it arbiter? Anyway. Verify that they made a profit if they make a profit, and it just gets donated to charity. If they somehow break even, why can't?
Because if they lose the arbitration, that ruins their leverage. That ruins their position for the actual next CBA.
No, there's no losing the arbitration. The arbiter will come in and just verify that there's profit or not. You don't lose or win. If the arbiter
comes in and says that there is profit, which he probably will say that for some teams there is, then they can't claim that they're losing money every year doing the next CBA. Everything you're saying would be great. I just don't think I've seen any indication that the owners would do it.
Yeah, so the owners would rather lose money this year than gamble on breaking even, is what you're saying.
They want to make this. Yeah, they don't care about this year. They're trying to reformat the MLB to being like a can't lose proposition, where the players are getting so underpaid that having an MLB team is just a crazy good asset. And where the sports teams do this all the time, and like pretty much every lockout, the NFL and NBA are very the NFL never has this issue, but the NBA is guilty of this too, and then actually succeeded. But like a big concept going into every lockout is that like essentially you have to reformat the rules so that every team makes money. But like, in what business is that true? Where does every business have to make money?
Well, this is the problem that I've kind of gotten in internal debates with other people about this before, because you look at an example like La Liga versus the pro sports in the United States, and not even just La Liga, but I guess La Liga is the best example because so many of their teams lose money, and they've had to institute policy that protects the owners from spending too much on players because they get really competitive and they're billionaires and they want to win, so they spend all their money they don't have. And things in MLB. Not MLB, but things in the United States with sports, we have salary caps and we have a draft, and it's all about balancing the play. And if you don't have things like that in your sport, like a draft, for example, you lose balance. And La Liga, there's two teams that win every year. It's Real Madrid or it's Barcelona. It's because they have the most resources, they're the most popular teams. It's never going to change. And they're a flawed league. And we don't want to be like La Liga. We want to have a league where everybody theoretically has a chance to win every season. And maybe if it's not this season, they have a plan to win in the next maybe 3 to 5 years.
You want everybody to either be rebuilding or competing.
Yeah.
That's like the goal of, I'd say, every sport.
You look at a team like Real Betis in Spain, they're never going to win. If you're a fan of Real Betis, God help you. You also are probably a fan of Barcelona or Real Madrid, and that's because your team has 0% chance to win. So the MLB union is the strongest union sports union in the world, and they're going to win this no matter what. And if it means having no season, they're going to win. That's how determined they are. And I think the owners need to come up with a better plan because they're not going to break this union. They're the best union in sports. So they're not going to trick them into a salary cap. They've already fucked them on cutting minor league players. Not that I think the Stars even care, though, to be honest. And they're cutting the drafted players down to 5 rounds. But I don't think they're going to win all this money haggling with the players. There's just no way.
I mean, I would hope I agree. Generally, owners tend to win lockouts because they just have so much more money that they can sit and lose money for longer. I just don't think that's as true right now, obviously, because of everything going on, and because this whole situation comes from the fact that these guys are losing money hand over fist right now.
Yeah.
So I think this is a different lockout situation than we've almost ever seen before. So I think this is probably the most even ground the players have ever been on. But it's when you were talking is like, it's just funny to me because I fully support that our sports are built so that like every team has like this relevance, but except how many of these owners would say that they're like full free market capitalist people?
All of them,
But
yeah.
what you essentially described is like sports socialism.
It has to be. It has to be. Unfortunately, it's slightly unfair to the players.
It's funny that like the combination of like what America considers itself as, our sports most socialist of any sports, like,
and it works.
Yeah, I know. I fully support it. It's just only funny when you hear these guys talk about other issues.
It's sad. This is the world we live in, where
everybody's a free market capitalist till they want help.
Yep. Yeah. Good times. So baseball this year or not? What do you think?
I think there probably will be because I think both sides I think especially the owner side, or actually and the MLBPA, which is such a well-run union compared to other unions, they just know what happened. They know the fallout of '94. I'm sure they even have data on it. I think it's going to be really contentious. I think they're probably going to miss their first deadline. I think there's going to be irreparable damage done reputation-wise in comparison to how the other sports have handled it. But I think they'll play.
Hope so.
I think that my worry is that they're going to play a half season and then they're going to have a real lockout right after that, which I think is very possible because I think they could get like an emergency agreement here, but that leaves the owners and players actually just as even bigger headliners for the next CBA.
I'll quote Tyrion Lannister when he was talking to Varys when what's his name? Robert's brother.
Renly.
No, the other one.
Stannis,
there it is. When Stannis Baratheon's sailing towards King's Landing, and Varys is like, yeah, Daenerys Targaryen, by the way, is in Karth, and she has 3 dragons. And Tyrion's just like, God damn it, dude. One war at a time. We'll worry about her later. So that's what I was thinking about when you were saying that the lockout for next year. Let's worry about the war right now, and then maybe next year we can worry about Daenerys Targaryen.
It just feels like that's not the owners are worrying about the next war, that they're trying to fight the next war right now. Otherwise, I agree. But yeah.
Stannis is at the gates, though. Get your shit together.
What is happening is because the MLB, unlike other sports, were just headed towards a lockout before this all started.
And as a baseball fan, I would just be so happy that baseball gets its shot to be in the spotlight again and get young fans interested. This is a huge chance for them to regain public interest, and they're losing it every day.
That's the irony, is that like we're just talking about whether or not they have a season, and like it's pretty universally agreed that they messed up by not being first back. Because their season already existed, and like just everybody knew like, oh, this is what baseball needed. We're like it won't be boring in comparison to having nothing. It's their chance to get fans back, and instead they're going to be last back over sports that aren't even supposed to be playing in the summer. Like it's just wild.
It's sad.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if you can hear, but it's my voice. But this goes back to the Astros issue. I am not a fan of Manfred.
Oh, man, anti-Manfred.
I don't know where he is helping smooth this out, but it's not happening. That's for sure.
He's no Adam Silver.
No, I just I don't know what to blame him for, but I just know that there's clearly he's clearly not helping.
I don't know what he's doing or what he did wrong, but it's his fault. He sucks.
At best, what he did is nothing, which isn't enough. Yeah. So yeah, that was my final point on it.
That was good stuff. Let's get to the movie draft, because that's I don't know, kind of the main reason why you're here, I guess. So the movie draft, there were some really easy ones right off the bat here that I think were not included. We talked a little bit off air about this. We don't want to include anything that falls into the dark humor category. So movies that can be changed from a comedy to a horror/thriller. I'm not including things like In Bruges, which I'm a huge fan of, but it doesn't make sense for this. Beetlejuice, I looked at really briefly, but that's too easy. Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. Horror. Yeah.
Did you have any others that you were looking through or considering? Yeah. And you're like, that's.
And I thought the same thing. It's just like, it's so obviously an action comedy, and like it is an action movie for people that aren't the characters, that like I don't think it can count.
Zombieland for another one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one. Yeah.
I pitched you Groundhog Day. I'm going to spoil this. I did not choose Groundhog Day, but you didn't like it.
I didn't like it. It's that it's like generally already credited with holding these like kind of. Yeah, people tend to think like it's like a really smart movie and like does like kind of like deal with the
Yeah, but there's no thriller
Yeah.
nature to it at all, or creepiness to it. It's
Not thriller, but existential, I would say.
It's existential. It's creative. It's funny, but above all, it's funny.
Yeah.
But I don't see a problem with throwing it into this category here as a thing you could change drastically into like a movie like 1 Hour Photo, where the guy's stalking his family the whole movie. He's stalking this girl.
Yeah, for sure counts. It's definitely you can definitely change it, and it's not a comedy or like there's been a billion of these movies made that aren't comedies.
True. All right, so Dustin, let's do this draft. I'm gonna hold a ping pong ball in my hand. It's either pink or yellow, and you just have to trust me here. Which color ping pong ball do I have?
Yellow.
It is yellow. Dustin,
all right.
So you're gonna pick first. I'll pick second. Then you can pick third. I'll pick fourth, and we'll go over some honorable mentions because I have a few honorable mentions that I wanted to talk about. And my sleeper pick, which I didn't include in my top two here, but my sleeper pick isn't really a comedy, but I think you'll like it.
Cool.
So,
all right.
You go ahead. Number one.
My number one we talked about a little when we were conceiving this idea, but my number one is The Hangover from Doug's perspective.
Oh, the first Hangover.
Yes, the first Hangover. So if you shift this movie to it all being from Doug's perspective, suddenly this is like an indie kind of existential movie about being slowly dying on the roof of a hotel and having.
Are there flashbacks to like the night? Like, how do you mix it up and make this more interesting?
I think you don't flashback because I think that the idea would be to like he's stuck. And also he wasn't part of the night really.
Yeah, he was. And they just left him on the roof.
He was.
Yeah.
Maybe like I think you'd have to then go like it becomes like a indie movie concept where it's like left dying on the top of the roof. He's left to like consider his mistakes.
So it's Castaway on a Vegas hotel roof.
Yeah, exactly. It's like such a horrifying situation if you just actually stay with him.
Like maybe he thinks about killing himself. How long is he up there? Like 2 days, maybe 3?
He's up there for so long. He's probably had like a heat stroke. He's probably considered like in delirium, like would he live if he jumped off?
It's like I bet I can hit that tarp on the 34th floor and roll off onto the balcony.
Yeah, and he is dying. It seems like at the end when they get him.
Like, can you imagine being that hungover and dehydrated and waking up on a hot, sunny roof?
Dehydrated. That's another thing. That's a good point.
He's got no water. He's got no shade. It could kill you pretty quickly. He
starts in a state of feeling like those things, and then he actually endures them in addition.
Should we make this movie right now? I bet we could. You're a writer. We could pump this out.
I think we should just make it with Doug and call it The Hangover. Like the other side.
No, just call it Doug. I like that.
Oh, Doug. Get sued by Nickelodeon.
Is statute of limitations up on that? Can we use that?
I don't know. I don't think that's what the statute of limitations
has nothing to do with statute of limitation. Or that what's it called when you get the rights to a name or like a song? Like that's
well, I don't know about a name. God, now I just fucking forgot it. Public domain.
Yeah, that's the one. It's definitely not old enough to fall into that category.
Names, I think there's names you can use again. There's tons of things with the same name.
Doug. Yeah, I'm sure Doug could work.
Yeah.
All right. So my pick, I like your Hangover pick. I don't know if it's worthy of going number one overall, but I think it's a solid pick. What?
Yeah, go on.
Going number 2 overall, I've got Zoolander. So,
all right, so go on this.
This is from the perspective of Mugatu, who we're gonna have to tone down a little bit on the flamboyance for this movie. He's gonna be the main character, fashion designer that's part of the dark underbelly world of politicians and wealthy influencers who plan assassinations of world leaders to further their own financial gain. He kidnaps and brainwashes one of the most famous models on the planet, trains him to murder the prime minister of Malaysia, or the prime. What was it, the prime rib of Propecia, and only to be discovered at the last minute and arrested on the catwalk of the event where the murder is about to happen. So it's kind of like Seven. It's more thriller than horror, but it's Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman Seven, where it's the same tone of that movie, not the same like plot, but the same tone, where it's more mystery and more thriller than horror. But do you think that could work?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it. I don't think I don't think it'd be great, but I think it definitely
The bones are there. You have to change the aesthetics quite a bit and the writing, and you'd have to make Mugatu less of a whatever he is. But the story is there to make it this like action thriller mystery kind of movie. I think it'd work.
I agree. Yeah,
I could rewrite that pretty easily, I think.
Yeah.
So your second pick, number 3 overall. What is it?
This is another one I don't know how this applies to our rule. But I think Toy Story from the perspective of the humans, and this actually goes for a lot of Pixar's movies.
Just the original Toy Story.
Yes, to finding out your toys are alive and watching you and pretend to not be alive by just being still for however long it takes while you're around would be fucking terrifying.
Toy Story has a whole bunch of issues going on with the physics and the realism in their movies with the toys. Like, when does a toy become sentient? Do they feel pain? And I think you'd mentioned this last week, right? This is one of the ones you were teasing with me, and we would tell it from the perspective of Sid, right?
Yeah. You'd have to be.
Sid's the only one in the movie that
like tortured boy. Like, they almost have to have like a relation, like a Chucky type situation going. Like
the thing, yeah. So do you change things where like they actually do murder someone?
No, I don't think if you need to. I think that you just be like. I think you could just be bad enough with like feeling like you're getting gaslighted. Like eventually you go to an insane asylum as nobody else believes you.
So it's an hour-long gaslight, and then at the last 10 minutes, the toys actually come to life and freak out Sid. So like, there's not a lot going on in this movie, to be honest.
Well, it'd be like, and then it'd be like Sid getting his like redemption, but like, well,
Sid legit goes insane though. Like, Woody talks to him and spins his head around, and the toys like are rising out of the mud. Like, there's some good stuff there, but it's all in the last 10 minutes of this movie.
It's true. No, you change the structure for sure. So he knows what he sees them earlier, but then
you gotta tease more.
Nobody else will believe him. Like, that would be like the core of it, is like essentially being in the situation where to tell anybody what is driving you crazy, people would think you're crazy, and essentially your life just falls apart from there. So life could be terrible for Sid.
I was also watching Constantine today, and I was talking to you about that.
Yeah, you were.
Was that yesterday? Was it today? What day? I don't even.
It's hard to tell now.
So I was watching Constantine and Top Gun today. That's my day, and planning for this podcast. Where was I going with that? So yeah, the main character Rachel is a psychic, and she has a twin sister. And when they were kids, the twin sister can see like demons and shit, and is freaking out. And the other sister like calls her sister a liar. So like, you have the same kind of thing where Sid is seeing toys come to life and no one believes him. And then eventually Rachel Weisz is the character, and her sister commits suicide because they sent her to an insane asylum. You could get really dark with the Sid character who sees stuff and no one believes him, and they could send him to a sanitarium, like you were saying, and who knows what could happen after that.
Can Constantine be a comedy? That's the question.
Yes.
It would have to be like Men in Black style almost.
Yeah, the devil at the end. You don't remember much of the movie, but the devil for sure has it dialed way up to 11. He's going for some kind of Academy Award, just really going after it. So yeah, there's definitely parts that you could make comedic. That guy.
Fair enough. I like that.
Oh no, Walter.
1 second. Yeah, that would be pretty terrifying.
So you've got Toy Story, and I already forgot your first pick.
Hangover.
The Hangover.
Right. Yeah.
All right, my second pick, last pick of the draft, and we'll go over some honorable mentions because you had to leave out a lot. But these go long. When you talk about movie, like, each movie deserves a little time to talk about. So, yeah. Anyway, my last pick here is Office Space.
So go on. I'm curious which perspective you're taking here.
So obviously it's Milton. I don't think I need to say much more than it's from
that's fair. Yeah.
Of Milton. So he's continuously verbally and mentally abused at his dead-end job throughout the whole movie. He's forced to work in a basement at one point. He's stripped of all his dignity, gets fired but isn't told, so they just stop paying him. he doesn't get any fucking birthday cake when there's a party from for his coworkers. One of his coworkers suffers an accident. I'm putting that in quotes. Like, you could infer that in different ways. After he has a failed suicide attempt in his garage, and then he's hit by a car coming out of his driveway, and now he's in a wheelchair. Milton decides he's going to burn down the whole office building with everyone in it, and boom, that's a hell of a thriller.
Yeah, that is all there pretty much.
You're impressed with that pick.
Yeah, and I will say that, like, I don't think I realized at the time, because it was the 90s and nobody realized these things, but like, how crazy that storyline is, that there's this guy who's just mentally ill. Everybody's just giving him shit the whole movie.
He's like muttering under his breath, I'm going to burn the fucking building down. Like they do a bit on South Park about that.
He's not like some annoying guy. He's like clearly like, not playing with a full deck. It's just like
depressed or bipolar or something.
But I think that was also probably a lot of workspaces before a certain time.
And it potentially still is. Working in a cubicle all day.
Yeah, someplace want to say that way.
I've got Zoolander and Office Space. You've got The Hangover and damn it, what was the second? Toy Story. So who had the better lineup? I think it's me, obviously, clearly.
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna disagree this time. I think Oscar, good pick. I think Zoolander was like, it's a little tough because it's such a
stretch.
So surreal tone. It's such a surreal tone that it's like, it's tough. I think action movies are, well, I don't even know what to call that movie, like a spy movie. Comedy spy, I guess. Yeah. So I think Office Space was a great pick, but that one's a little more like you just have to do a lot of work. You have to change almost everything aesthetically about the movie.
Right. Let's hear some of my honorable mentions and see if you like one better. Okay. I'll run through my list real quick, and then we can go through if you have any. So this one is a stretch too, but I just wanted to include it because I like it so much, and I like the challenge of making it. Would be Galaxy Quest. So the aliens that arrive on Earth. Have you seen Galaxy Quest?
Yeah, I love Galaxy Quest. I'm wondering if
So the aliens that arrive on Earth mention how their entire civilization has been the victim of genocide by these other aliens.
Yeah, that is kind of casually mentioned. Yeah,
they just kind of gloss over how their whole race has been extinguished, and it's pretty messed up. And it kind of concludes with this battle. So like it's more of like, I guess, a war movie than a horror movie, but you could, I think, focus more on the aliens and turn it into like kind of like a Hotel Rwanda for aliens.
God.
Is that too much?
That last description got me. You didn't have so much until the last part.
Jesus. I felt a little sick saying that. That was my Louis C.K. like maybe? Like
it's just like, why?
I've also got School of Rock.
All right, so go. I'm curious what your take would be on that one.
So the teacher who lies about his credentials to get close to all these kids and like is taking them after school on these random like trips and doing things that aren't school related and lying about every aspect of his life. And you're hearing about it from the not the teacher's perspective, but the parents' perspective, where like this creep, possible pedophile has abducted all of your children kind of movie. So it's like a Ransom Mel Gibson type movie.
Yeah, no, I see it. You have to go different directions in the second half, but yeah.
40-Year-Old Virgin.
Well, there's a lot of movies. Okay, so I'll say there's a lot of movies. We kind of talked about Wedding Crashers a little bit earlier. There's a lot of movies where like the object, it's about guys getting girls, where it's very easily made this from the girl perspective.
So 40-Year-Old Virgin like falls into this category pretty easily. And then the other one that I had like in the same mold is Dumb and Dumber. Same thing.
For sure. Even Superbad, which I love and is an all-timer, is like from the girls. If two girls that they're not dating find out that these guys have spent the whole day trying to get alcohol so that they can get them drunk and hook up with them, is pretty fucking creepy. They do deal with that a little bit in the movie.
They could have spent more time on that for sure.
But they acknowledge that like these guys have life.
And then they fall for him at the end because it's a typical movie where like the two geeky guys end up getting the two hot girls at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
It's unfortunate. That didn't work for me in real life.
One honorable mention should be, or just we should mention that this whole idea came about because somebody tweeted, and I don't have it up to give them credit, but I just want to let them know we're not ripping off their idea if they listen to this podcast, which we should be fine. But that Mrs. Doubtfire, that a lot of people get upset at the mom and Mrs. Doubtfire for not noticing that the maid is her old husband. But if you really have to be careful about making that accusation, because there's no coming back from that one.
Yeah, it's like, hell, that elderly British nanny that I hired kind of looks like my husband or my ex-husband.
If you make that observation, you're wrong. Your whole life goes away. You're like, you're shamed. You're maybe like, people wonder if you need mental help. You're like I don't know if you lose your kids. People think you've been accepted.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I think people start to question her a little bit in that movie. She questions her own reality quite a bit.
Okay, yeah, but like that. But that was a funny tweet. That was kind of like the basis of this idea, because that's which is like
Robin Williams doesn't get enough credit for the range he has had as an actor. He was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he was amazing.
Who else can do Aladdin, Mrs. Doubtfire, What Dreams May Come, and the movie with Matt Damon and Good Will Hunting? Who else can do all of those movies?
Yeah, he was awesome. And I just recently, actually, like a year ago, I went back and read about his death, and it's a lot different than like the public interpretation of his death was that he's been depressed his whole life and then just finally pulled the trigger. And that was not the case. Like, he had like aggressive, like he has dealt in and out with depression, but like a lot of people do, but he had aggressive like Parkinson's and dementia and was losing his mind. So it kind of sucks. Like, the reputation of what his death was, just people attached now to like who he always was, and it sucks because it's not the case.
I'm a big fan, Robin Williams.
Yeah,
love that guy.
Awesome. Yeah,
the stand up wasn't really for me, but I loved him as an actor.
Yeah, and I think like you hear, I always love. Sometimes I'll like this just as much as like the thing itself, but I love the people who even the other people in that field geek out on. And when you hear other comedians talk about Robin Williams, they were like, we can't touch this guy. Like, he's just like a force of nature. They like, I remember David Letterman saying like, he found that Robin Williams helped him find his whole like calm, like sarcastic, sardonic, like kind of persona, because he saw Robin Williams at a comedy club and he's like, that guy's so much better at every type of comedy he's doing than I'm ever going to be, that I just need to be nothing like him.
Yeah. And I think he was the Vincent Hanna doing just a ton of cocaine before every set, like, which gave him all that energy. There's no other explanation for that.
Well, he also had a coke problem for a while.
Yeah, big surprise. The least surprising coke problem on the planet award goes to Robin Williams.
He has a great quote that coke is God's way of telling you have too much money.
That's a phenomenal quote. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was great.
My last sleeper pick here isn't really a comedy, but it can be inferred or construed or is a comedy. It's Draft Day, starring Kevin Costner.
I was just listening to this rewatchable, so go on.
And it's told from the perspective of a Cleveland Browns fan who has to live through the entire day watching their general manager trade away all their first round picks for one player and then trading them all back and drafting a linebacker with the number 1 overall pick that you could have had at number 7 and then drafting a running back in the top 10. It's life as a Cleveland Browns fan. I thought this could have been a hilarious comedy or just a horror film for a Cleveland Browns fan.
Or just real life. I mean, that's like, it's not what their experience is. Last year they're finally like hyped up, and then they keep a guy who, like, some people, I consistently hear like people and like football writers and stuff say like, most of the time when a coach is not well like thought of, it's like he still knows more about football than you've ever known. It's like Freddie Kitchens is like one of the few people. It's like that guy has no idea what he's
Freddie
doing.
Kitchens is the guy at the bar playing the pinball machine who's like spewing hot takes with 2 beers and like, yeah, they should have drafted that wide receiver from Louisville. Like, that guy, like, he has no idea what he's talking about.
The 4th and 9 draw was like an all-time. But yeah, and so like it was just like last year was just like, oh, so much hype, and then they just make the worst coaching decision ever.
Would Dennis Leary be a better head coach than Freddie Kitchens?
Probably, and like the irony is that like the truth is Freddie Kitchens succeeded in a half-season year before because he just as an OC anyways, because he wasn't Hugh Jackson. That they got the classic like the witch is dead boost where like the terrible coach goes and they just win because everybody's like free. And they use that to read too much into it and hire another terrible coach. That is a terrible franchise.
Let's lock him up. Freddie Kitchens locked him up.
And because of that, because of one terrible decision that kind of made the season go sideways, they fired the GM that was like universally recognized as at least getting them back to like general talent level. It's just like there's such a mess.
Do you have any honorable mentions before we get out of here?
I think that's pretty much everything. I mean, like almost every comedy, if you do this enough, if you work hard enough, you can do this. But like those are the ones that like there's just like a whole nother genre in there. There's a lot of them where it's like it's true, but it's almost part of the concept. Like we talked about Ghostbusters, but like it's an action comedy. So the idea that it's an action movie, if you take away the comedy, is like it's already present in the movie.
Could you do it with Tropic Thunder?
As the director who gets his head blown off.
just from his perspective.
I that's funny you said that because I just was talking about how great that movie is, but I don't know whose perspective would it be. I mean, would it be just that like the real life person where all these guys die?
Oh yeah, one of the Vietnamese guys.
I guess you don't need to, or no, you just don't need to change
the panda.
Except you just need to change the outcome. It's like a tragedy, and all these guys die. The cast died. But yeah, there's something there.
Okay. I was just throwing out a comedy that I really like, and
that movie's amazing.
Oh, I wanted to run this by you before we go too, just real quickly. So I was looking through lists of comedies to get ideas here, and I ran into Rotten Tomatoes 150 essential comedies list. Do you have any idea what might be number one?
I think I skimmed this list for the same purpose, but no, I don't remember.
It's City Lights, 1931, with Charlie Chaplin. Get the hell out of here! Get off your high horse, Rotten Tomatoes.
That's like so inevitable that they would do that.
Number two is a movie I've actually seen and really like. It's Airplane.
One of my favorites of all time.
Hey, don't look this up. This is not the point of this discussion right now.
It's funny though. I just talked about Airplane with I think it was with my mom and my brother, but we were talking about how Airplane lasts because it was just hilarious, but it wasn't like supposed to be like pushing the edge of like our new R-rated comedies. It's like the movies that last from like previous eras are the movies that didn't rely on pushing the envelope, because eventually the envelope is far pushed. But like
that movie holds up really well, by the way, don't you think?
It can hold because that's not what it's relying on. It's just relying on being hilarious.
Yeah, it's just like kind of back to like just original hardcore, like kind of slapsticky comedy that just holds up really well if you do it right.
Yeah, there's just so many amazing bits. The co-pilot is like, I still think the thing I've ever seen in my life.
And the two black guys talking jive gets me every time too.
There's so many parts. The woman on the PA, the two people, the woman and the man having an argument over the PA outside the airport, the entire movie.
I didn't rewatch the movie. I think that's a Hall of Fame, like top 10 comedy for me.
That might be my vote for best comedy ever. It's just so good.
It is really good.
Yeah.
What was I was just watching something recently. God damn it. What was I watching? It's like an older comedy like that I think holds up really well. It might have been Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day holds up amazing.
Comedy. That's a top 10er for me also. Hall of Fame.
That's a good one. What did I just watch?
So I want to just run through it. Number 3 was Monty Python Holy Grail. Number 4 was a 1959 movie with Marilyn Monroe, Some Like It Hot. My dad likes that movie, so that's. Number 5 was a Clark Gable movie. And then number 6 was like the first movie that we kind of grew up with, and it was Big Lebowski. Do you think Big Lebowski deserves to be the top movie kind of from our generation and number 6 overall? I'm not a Big Lebowski guy at all. I didn't think it should be this high.
I do like the Big Lebowski. I think that makes sense on that list because it's just like it's still a Coen Brothers movie, so it's made like a movie. Like it's just got better filmmaking and stuff like than a lot of movies, and it's so kind of like weird and nuanced. But no, I don't think it's the funniest movie of our lifetime or anything like that.
No, I don't think it's even close.
But I will say comedies. It's interesting how half the comedies I feel like just do not last.
That's that's the problem with comedy, but that's not a bad thing either, though. You can still have fond memories of it. You can enjoy it in the moment. Like Superbad, you mentioned earlier, I don't ever need to watch again.
Yeah,
I don't need to ever watch it again. But I really liked it at the time, and I've seen it probably 2 or 3 times since then. But it's just not going to be a Hall of Famer. It was a good movie. It made money. It's just not everything holds up, and it's in comedy. It's kind of impossible to know what's going to hold up and what's not.
And it's kind of funny when you look back when you were young, you'll like two movies, and one of them will be like, oh, that's just because I was young. It's not even good now when I watch it. And the other will be like, that movie was actually genius. And you won't have known the difference at the time.
You know what's become one of my favorite movies, and I only got to it really late in life. It's an older movie for us, and it's not that old, but it's become one of my favorite movies, and it's a movie I would bring to me on the desert island, Roadhouse. It's become one of my favorite movies.
I mean, yeah, we watched Roadhouse recently.
I love Roadhouse.
It really is Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
It's so good.
It's funny because like a movie from that time, usually you have to grow up with it to have some kind of connection to it, and they don't age well if you've never seen it before and you're 30 years old and you're watching a movie from the 80s for the first time. It usually doesn't end well, but like for some reason that movie connects with me on a deep level.
Yeah, I think that movie is almost like this opposite thing where it's just like how over the top, but yet totally sincere it is.
Is it self-aware at all?
I don't think so. Like, you see movies that come around every once in a while that are trying to self-consciously capture that, and they always suck. You can't do it.
It's better that it doesn't know.
No, it has to be that it doesn't know. There's nothing worse than a movie self-consciously trying to capture.
Well, Airplane self-consciously. No,
yeah,
you're using
Airplane's the satire. Yeah. Like movies are like, I don't know. It's just like you can't do it on purpose.
Except the movie we just talked about, Airplane.
Airplane's a full-on satire. I mean, Airplane's slapstick satire. But like, I mean, like, but I'm talking about a movie that like thought it was a drama at the time, but now we know is just insane, which is Roadhouse.
Armageddon.
I think when they were making Roadhouse. Yeah, I mean Armageddon. I will say Steve Buscemi knew exactly what movie. Like as that movie goes on, every line he says is hilarious.
Owen Wilson's pretty funny too. I like Owen Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I think a fair amount of those actors kind of knew, but Ben Affleck definitely didn't.
Nope, no one told Ben Affleck or Liv Tyler, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, they were having a very intense romantic drama.
Liv Tyler thinks she's winning an Oscar.
But Steve Buscemi knows, the Russian guy definitely knows.
I love the Russian guy. He's he plays Prickly Pete in an episode of Seinfeld, the Frogger Machine.
Yeah, he's in a lot of things.
By the way, I think he's the devil in Constantine. Bring it full circle here.
He was also like
John Wick. He was also the Russian guy in John Wick.
Yeah, he was in John Wick. He was a god in American Gods. He's been in a lot of things.
Is he like your? This is an impossible question to answer right now. But is he like your favorite random guy who you don't know his name actor that if he shows up in the movie you're like, hey, I love this guy?
That guy, yeah, I mean he's up there. I think I do know his name. I want to say it's Peter Stormare.
That sounds pretty good.
But yeah, he's amazing.
Every time I see his face, I'm just like, yes. Anything this guy, I'm gonna like.
About self-awareness, like he is. Oh, Fargo. That's why he's like pretty famous. He's
okay.
Big part of Fargo, but like he is definitely self-aware. He's funny.
Yeah, I mean, he's Prickly Pete, the Russian battery stealer.
That one John Wick scene he's in, he chews the shit out of that scene.
He owns those 3 minutes that he's on.
Oh my god, he goes hard in those 3 minutes.
Keanu Reeves disappears when that man's on screen.
Yeah, it is a great 3 minutes.
All right, I think we're good to go to get out of here now. That went pretty long.
That was fun.
Thank you guys for listening. Please follow the show's Twitter account at Fire Farm Hands. And if you enjoy, subscribe. We're on all your favorite platforms. The one you're listening to right now, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, and iHeart. You can also find us at Believe.com and at Believe Podcasts on Twitter. Please please leave your comments, questions, concerns, and your rating of the show on all platforms. It's amazing how I can still mess up the read after reading the same thing after 40 something podcasts.
I gotta tell you, I'm 32 years old and I still despise reading out loud. I feel like I forget how to be a human when I do
reading out loud in English class when you were in high school had to be the worst experience in the world.
And once you realized you were like reading loud and kind of being awkward about it, you were done.
You've been listening to Believe in Padres Prospects on the Believe Podcast Network, San Diego's #1 sports podcast network. I'm Ryan Hart. That was Dodger Dustin. We'll talk to you all next week. Toward your destination, though you may find from time to time. Well, I would take the better odds if I was betting it. So right now I'm saying I guess the better odds would be there is a season. Would that seem accurate to you?
Yeah, if I could parlay, there is a season, but then like there is also another shortened season soon.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be like a killer parlay, which is like you opposite. You'd think that one half missed season would galvanize them to get to not do a half locked out season next, but they won't.